tonight on KTN Prime.
The Hague trial. Deputy President William Ruto returns to The Hague ahead of his trial tomorrow.
That list, whether we see it, we ever see it or not, it is of absolutely no relevance with regards to investigations or prosecutions.
And revisiting the Waki envelope, just what is Jubilee's agenda?
There'll be need for rationalization.
After the strike, now massive layoffs await Nairobi County workers.
Also coming up on KTN Prime, court now seeks to halt enforcement of new VAT rates.
This is KTN Prime with Yvonne Okwara and Wilson Mburu.
Well, a very good evening to you and welcome to the most comprehensive bulletin in the country. This is KTN Prime.
Indeed, and we thank you so much for staying with us in all of the events regarding the ICC trial that reconvenes tomorrow is what we are covering for you now. This is KTN's coverage of the Hague trial.
A very good evening to you. On the eve of the resumption of the trial against Deputy President William Ruto and his co-accused Joshua Arap Sang at the International Criminal Court. Ruto, who had traveled back home following the adjournment of the trial last Wednesday, is back in the Netherlands. The Deputy President arrived at the Schiphol airport a few hours ago. At least 20 members of Parliament are also in The Hague in support of the Deputy President. The ICC is set to resume sittings tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Hague local time, with the prosecution's first witness scheduled to take the stand. ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, who has suffered setbacks in recent weeks, suffered yet another blow yesterday with the withdrawal of 4 more witnesses from the case. Is the prosecutor's case weakening, and if so, can the office of the prosecutor take action against those who withdraw from the case? KTN's Asha Mwilu seeks the answers.
Memories of the Kiambaa church attack locked away. The villagers quietly move about their business. Here, the events of the post-election violence are rarely discussed. In a couple of hours, however, these residents will have to relive the attack that saw 30 people, mostly women and children, huddled in the church and torched to death at the height of the post-poll chaos. The ICC prosecutor will Tuesday present her first witness against William Ruto, a witness who will speak on the chilling events of that attack.
Bensouda, ile kesi yenye anapeleka huko kuuliza ABCD sioni kama iko na maana. Mimi kesi ningeulizwa, mimi ningesema wafutilie hiyo maneno mbali.
Sisi tulisameheana tu, sisi watu ya chini wenye tuliumizana, lakini chanzo hatujajua ni nini. Lakini kama hata tungeweza kujua chanzo cha hiyo vita, ingekuwa ni afadhali.
As she prepares to play her first card that will set the pace in the case against Ruto and Sang, the prosecutor is also facing a test of time. 4 witnesses, also said to be victims of the Kiambaa attack, pulled out of the ICC process on Sunday. Legal experts have varying opinions on whether the prosecution can take legal action against those witnesses.
If witnesses have been coached, if witnesses have been forced to testify against their will, then investigations need to be done to find out how that happened.
You have a choice to testify or not to testify. If you choose to testify, you have a choice about what to say. And if you choose to withdraw, you just have a choice. You are allowed to withdraw without any conditions.
What implications will the withdrawal of these witnesses at the 11th hour have on the prosecutor's case?
Members of the public should not be conclusive that it's the end of the case or the case is falling apart.
You know, the prosecutor has to prove her case, huh? So if you don't have witnesses, it presents difficulties.
Whether the prosecutor will request permission to replace these witnesses is yet to be confirmed. The defense teams, however, are waiting for Fatu Bensouda to deal her first card before they call out their first defense witness. Asham Wilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, just days after both the National Assembly and the Senate approved a motion to leave the International Criminal Court, there are fresh attempts to unearth the origin of the cases at the ICC.
National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale and Senate Majority Leader Kindiki Kithure now say they want all the names in the Waki report revealed in the interest of truth. Linda Ogutu reports.
We want to know the truth about ICC. So we have been given 6. We need to know the other 14. We don't mind if all the 14 are from Jubilee.
We want, first of all, Kenyans to know all the names that were recommended for action by Justice Waki. We want to know.
The latest move by the Jubilee majority leaders, who now say the men facing charges at the International Criminal Court are only but a fraction of those believed to have been behind the 2007-2008 post-election violence. According to the two, the Waki envelope that contained the names of those responsible for the atrocities had more than 6 names, and now they want all the names in the public domain.
When the truth comes out, we may need to forgive some people who plotted against our leaders.
George Kegoro from the International Commission of Jurists say the chain of custody of the names may be a hurdle. The Waki envelope was the product of the Commission of Inquiry on Post-Election Violence. The envelope was handed over to the panel of eminent African personalities and the then ICC prosecutor Luis Moreno Campo.
If the Kenyan authorities are asking who has the names, they've got to then ask who, can the names be released? They've got to ask who has the names, has to be to the person to release the names.
The list is now in the custody of the International Criminal Court. Now, you have to understand that the International Criminal Court, particularly the Office of the Prosecutor, has its own policies about how it deals with information and documents that are submitted to it.
Can he tell the nation why Kenya should stick with ICC?
You Africans, you members of the 11th Parliament, must remember this. Don't be captives.
This comes just days after both the Parliament and the Senate voted to withdraw the country from the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. And if the utterances are anything to go by, then the 11th Parliament is just getting started with the International Criminal Court and the path that led the country to it.
Under the law, the report was supposed to be handed over to the former president and the former prime minister. He broke the law when he handed over that document to another person who has no jurisdiction within our laws.
The devil, however, may be in the details.
We will use this 11th Parliament to sort out all the unsorted issues.
That list, whether we see it, we ever see it or not, it is of absolutely no relevance with regards to investigations or prosecutions.
But for now, the battle lines are drawn and the 11th Parliament seems bent on setting the country on what they perceive as the right path. Linda Ogutu, KTN Prime.
Now that story leads us to our big Q tonight, and we ask, should all the names in the Waki envelope be revealed? Should all the names in the Waki envelope be revealed?
And you can send us your thoughts and your comments on SMS. Please start with a yes or no, followed by a brief comment, and send that to the number 22155. That number again is 22155, and we will share your views during this live newscast. You can also send us your comments on Twitter. That's at KTN Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara, and at Wilson_Mburu. We look forward to your comments, which we will share during this live broadcast.
Now we are continuing our comprehensive coverage of the ICC trials, and right now we'll hand back to Rita Tinina, who is in The Hague.
It is just over 12 hours before the resumption of the trial at the ICC, and as the prosecutor prepares her witness to take the stand, here in The Hague there were preparations of a different kind. Ever heard of a noise rehearsal? Well, the Department of Horse Artillery was getting ready for celebrations to mark the Princess Day tomorrow. Part of the drill was getting the horses used to some noise. We witnessed that unique rehearsal. On a beachfront in Schwenigen, The Hague, the Department of Horse Artillery is getting ready for the opening of the new session of the Dutch Senate and House of Representatives. The day, dubbed Princess Day, is the equivalent of Kenya's budget reading and will see the reigning monarch of the Netherlands set out the policy for the coming parliamentary session. But this is one rehearsal with a difference, not just because of the venue, a beachfront. The rehearsals have been going on for 4 days, mostly on the streets, but the 5th and final day is unique. The idea is to get the horses accustomed to noise. The horses will take part in a procession past crowds of people who will have lined the streets on Princess Day. Crowds gathered here are encouraged to make some noise for the horses. Some don't disappoint. The horses will also be part of a parade, and ensuring they are comfortable with the sound of gunfire is another item on the day's agenda. Real gunshots are fired to get the horses used to the sound so that they can keep their cool when the parade performs a gun salute for the king. And it is easy to see why such a noise rehearsal is important. The horses are introduced to all that will be used in the fanfare come Tuesday. The music from the band, that too, the horses have to get familiar with. During the rehearsals, crowds are treated to a show of the country's military might, with the tanks operating both on land and in water. The rehearsals take close to 2 hours, and by the time the horses leave the beach, the Department of Horse Artillery is confident that they can handle some noise during the grand ceremony that will see King William Alexander ride in a golden carriage. As residents wait to hear what plans the king has for the country, we will be keeping an eye on things for you at the International Criminal Court as the first witness takes their stand before trial chamber number 5A. From The Hague, and I hand things back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Rita Tinina, who's at The Hague. Let's move back to the country now, where the Court Coalition now seeks an amendment of the VAT Act to exempt basic commodities from taxation. But with Jubilee's numerical strength, what are Court's chances of success? Ben Kitili reports.
As parliamentary business resumes Tuesday, the official opposition court seeks to continue pushing for its agenda in both houses. And the first project on Court's entry in the National Assembly will be an onslaught on the recently passed VAT Act, which has seen the retail prices of various essential commodities skyrocket, significantly increasing the cost of living.
Court will sponsor immediate amendment to the VAT Act to expressly exclude basic items from VAT to cushion ordinary Kenyans from their present suffering.
The passing of the VAT Act has elicited massive opposition from Kenyans and consequently sharp criticism of the Jubilee administration. But President Uhuru Kenyatta has been on record defending the act and accusing Court of politicizing the issue.
Kuna wengine ambao wanapiga mdomo juu ya hii mambo ya VAT. Mimi nataka niwakumbushe ya kwamba huo mswada uliletwa wakati walikuwa ndani ya serikali.
Jubilee has enjoyed better numbers in both the Senate and the National Assembly and have used that advantage to push key bills, much to Court's frustration. There has also been talk of Court MPs being switch-talked into supporting government positions in Parliament.
Wakienda kuongea na rais au naibu wake, hiyo si kusema kwamba wanatongozwa waingie kwenye Jubilee.
Sisi huku kwenye kodi tuko ngangari, tuko imara, hatutongezeki hata kidogo.
Another issue that Jubilee are trying to push down Court's throats is a bid to pull Kenya out of the International Criminal Court.
We condemn the attempt to pull Kenya from the Rome Statute and will strongly fight this move by all means possible.
Court has also resolved to oppose 2 bills on the Kenya Police Service, which are currently before Parliament. Another promise to continue fighting for increased allocation to the counties was also made, although court refused to comment on their previously loud call for a referendum on the same. The Coalition for Reforms and Democracy Court had a torrid time in the first session of Parliament following Jubilee's superior numbers in both houses, and as the official opposition coalition, court will be seeking to employ more efficient tactics as Parliament reopens Tuesday. Ben Kitili, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, the Nairobi County government will lay off over 5,000 workers. Governor Evans Kidero says the bloated workforce is affecting delivery of service. And as Betty Kialo reports, this shocker comes just days after the workers abandoned their 2-week strike.
We intend to achieve it so that
Governor Evans Kidero disclosed that the county government would require in excess of 6 billion shillings to lay off the workers. He argued that with the current 11,048 workers, who in total take up to 700 million shillings in wages monthly, it was difficult to improve service delivery at the county government.
It is not possible to continue with the current level of expenses, more particularly cost of employment versus the income we have.
If Kidero's plans were to be adopted, then 5,046 workers would be laid off. However, Kidero's revelations were criticized by members of the committee who argued that the governor does not have authority to sack employees as they had been approved by the national government.
If you were to carry over the responsibility of, for example, laying off or releasing or so forth, you would increase that, you had a debt of 1.2 billion. You have a debt of 1.2 billion for legal fees. It would go up, yeah? Because if that responsibility comes to county government.
We say those who are excess can be taken elsewhere where you have a deficit. And that was agreed very well. But when you come on the ground, and I'm sorry to say this, Mr. Chairman, the governors have gone their own way.
Kidero, however, maintained his argument, citing that investigations had revealed that the council has been paying salaries to non-existent employees. Some had died, while others live abroad. Kidero further disclosed that the county government was owed about 47 billion shillings by the national government, which his government would use to honor a collective bargaining agreement arrived at between the defunct Nairobi City Council and its workers, among other financial burdens.
Compel them to pay what they owe the county government.
Kidero had been summoned by the committee to shed light on the crisis that had hit the county government last week after the staff went on strike, paralyzing services in institutions formerly under the city council. Betty Kialo, KTN.
Now let's take a recap of our big question tonight, and we're asking: should all the names in the Waki envelope be revealed? Should all the names in the Waki envelope be revealed?
And we're asking you to send us your texts with a yes or no, followed by a brief comment to the number 22155. You can also get in touch with us on Twitter at KTN Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara, and at Wilson_Mburu. And I think we have time to sample a few. Here's one from Charles Inwani on Twitter. You say, yes, I'm curious to know how Ocampo eliminated some and retained others. And here's another one with a different view from Deja Vu. You call yourself on Twitter. You say, for what reason? Let Uhuruto concentrate on their cases and avoid sideshows.
Well, we'll of course continue to update you on what you're saying on our BQ, and we'll sample some other comments at the end of this live newscast. As for now, we'll take a short break, but don't you go away, because we have a lot lined up shortly after.
Where it requires a gun, let the gun be used, because we have seen police officers failed at the hands of dangerous criminals. And the final thing I would like to say about this one, human rights activists will actually have about extrajudicial killings, but I have never had any one of them. I have never had any human rights activists come to in the hand of the police. Unlike this time, someone to talk, a voice for the police. We have seen them harassed. We have seen them, intimidated. Like in Kisumu the other day, you saw what happened when someone brought a corpse before the OCPD's office. That is, we can't run a country that way.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Well, you are watching KTN Prime. We are glad you're watching. Welcome back.
Indeed. Now, the Kenya National AIDS and STI Control Program, NASCOP, says the cost and complexity of using female condoms has discouraged women from using the condoms. The report states that women's apathy to the contraceptive has led to a low uptake of the product.
Condom dispensers are not hard to spot in many of the public hospitals, but majority will only contain male condoms. Female condoms are rarely available. Female condoms were first introduced in the 1980s, but it was until 2009 when cheaper, less noisy, and more comfortable ones were invented. This, many hoped, would encourage more women to use them in a bid to reduce the risk of transmission of HIV and other STIs and also unintended pregnancies. There are varied opinions on the female condom.
It's not known. It's not common yet. I've never had a chance to try it, that's all.
Mimi mwenyewe nishatumia female condom and it is very comfortable, iko sawa, naweza ipromote na naweza elezea mtu atumie female condom.
As the world marked the Global Female Condom Day, Kenya National AIDS and STI Control Program NASCOP raised concerns over the low rate of female condom use. For instance, according to NASCOP, 175 million male condoms were used in 2012. In the same year, only 1.7 million female condoms were distributed. That means for every one female condom distributed, 100 male condoms were distributed.
To empower our county assemblies in the 47 counties to ensure that they allocate resources for HIV and AIDS, including procurement of female condoms.
NASCOP says the female condom gives women control and choice over their sexual health. A woman can protect herself when her partner does not want to use a male condom. However, there are factors that have kept women away from using these condoms. They are expensive, they are not socially and commercially available, and are complex to use. NASCOP is now advocating for reduction of cost of female condoms, but this will only be possible with increased use. Though the price of female condoms is higher than the male condoms, there is some evidence to suggest that some female condoms can be washed, disinfected, and reused. Angel Katusha, KTN.
Now, the National Museum is calling for a halt in any construction work at the site in Kilifi, where bones believed to date back 600 years were found. The museum wants a land survey conducted immediately to establish the origins of the bones. Charity Kimani has the details.
Officials of the National Museums of Kenya halted construction works on the archaeological site that dates back to the slave trade era. This amid many unanswered questions as to how the developer was allocated to erect structures along the coastal strip. Museum officials say the Vanga to Kiunga coastal strip is a protected archaeological site, and there can be no excavations without requisite approvals.
Mahali hakufanyiwa archaeological impact assessment. Kama kumefanywa, mifupa hiyo hangeweza kufukuliwa na hiyo mashini kubwa ya excavator.
The custodial of Kenya's cultural heritage, the National Museums, while insisting they were not aware of this development, are now questioning the level of environmental impact assessment conducted by the relevant government departments.
Lengo na madhumuni ni kufanya rescue archaeology. Tutarescue vile vitu vilivyoko pale, vile vitu vya kupeleka laboratory tutazipeleka laboratory, vitu vya kupeleka kwa storage tutapeleka kwa storage, na vitu vya kuachwa pale pale kama ile msikiti tutaacha pale pale.
The country awaits answers on who slept on the job leading to the destruction of this important national cultural heritage site. Charity Kimani, KTN.
Now let's go to the courts, where a Nigerian businessman was today charged with being in possession of hard drugs. The man, who had initially been deported with suspected drug baron Anthony Chinedu, but later sneaked back into the country. He was charged alongside a woman said to be his wife. Emmanuel Peter was kicked out of the country 4 months ago following a declaration of war on drugs by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Emmanuel and Virginia Wangeshi were arrested at their home in Donholm, Nairobi. They face charges of being in possession of 445 sachets of heroin. The two, however, did not take pleas since the charge sheet was defective. They were remanded in custody until tomorrow.
Now, for most of those who were born after Kenya gained her independence, it often seems that as if the Kenyatta International Conference Center has always been a part of the city's skyline. But the iconic building has only celebrated its 40th birthday. And while a Norwegian national is often credited for its unmistakable design, the architectural brain behind the design of the building is actually a Kenyan, a man now in his 80s, who now takes us down memory lane, recalling the events that led to the construction of the conference center.
40 years ago, the Kenyatta International Conference Center started operations. Many of those celebrating today had not been born at the time, and the few who are older than the building can hardly remember the period when KICC was not part of Nairobi's skyline. One man who remembers every step of the journey that brought KICC into being is David Muoki Mutiso, now 81 years old. He was 41 when the conference center was opened. He designed it. The building that is now known for hosting conferences was originally meant for a different purpose, one that KANU Secretary General Tom Mboya relayed to Muoki in 1968. Muoki had at this time achieved several firsts. He was the first African architect in the country and the first African chief architect in the Ministry of Public Works. It was while in this position that Tom Mboya sought audience with him.
KANU wanted to have a headquarters. They had no money to pay fees for architects. So the Secretary General of a party came to me, the chief architect, and said, a party would like us to design a building for them.
But there was a little problem to be resolved first.
As government, we could not design a building for a private organization. I told him we would, but we would charge a fees that we normally charge local authorities that come to Buffalo Works to design for them.
And soon details of the project came to President Jomo Kenyatta's attention.
And he said, from there on, you'll be the one to brief us what building you wanted.
Until the moment the foundation stone was laid, every Monday, Mutiso and his partner would go off to consult with Kenyatta in Gatundu. Work began in 1969, continuing steadily until 1973 when the building was ready.
The party could not afford to build it. We then, in government, decided that we will build it and government will own it.
What started out as a building to house the KANU headquarters turned into a conference facility accidentally.
As it was about to be completed, Kenya agreed to host the World Bank meetings here. And when the team of the World Bank came to examine the facilities that we are offering, they decided we didn't have enough. We didn't have a plenary hall, for example, and many other committee rooms. So the plenary hall bit was then added at that point in time.
The KICC contract was just worth 80 million shillings, but it put Mutiso and his partner Carl Nostvik on the map.
I feel proud that I was part of it, and to a large extent very much involved in the middle with Carl Nostvik, of course. Nosvik was my assistant. He was on the drawing board most of the time. And eventually, after 4 years, he was on contract provided by the Norwegian government.
Today, questions abound as to the inspiration behind the building that is the culmination of behind-the-scenes negotiation.
As a symbol, one of the buildings represents a typical African hut. The other one is a tall structure, which has got a symbol, a Felix symbol.
One of his other notable projects is Mburu Estate. But while David fared well, for a few years KICC did not. Years of neglect saw it lose its luster.
They did not maintain it. So as a consequence, some of the features in that building that we had at the time, for example, the revolving restaurant, I gather is non-functional.
Today, KICC is slowly taking back its place of pride. Staff proudly proclaim that it is to be referred to as the Kenyatta International Convention Center. And as they celebrate, the architect who designed it is content to sit back, his contribution towards building the nation made. Wilkie Sanyabwa for the 50-year series.
Indeed, our country has such great history, and we thank Wilkie Sanyabwa for bringing us that report. We now want to hand you over to Joy Dorit-Bira, who's in our business studio, to bring us the latest in the world of money and business. Joy?
Thanks a lot, Yvonne. And today we'll be telling you what exactly it's going to take for Kenya to foster faster growth, as Kenya will host one of the largest economic conferences held in East Africa in conjunction with the IMF and Central Bank, but also just ahead in business.
Renowned businessman Kamlesh Patni surrenders duty-free shops, foregoes billions awarded by the arbitration court.
Tweet of the day in association with Imperial Bank Arsenal Debit Card.
Visit your nearest Imperial Bank branch for your Imperial Bank Arsenal debit card. Imperial Bank, looking after your interest.
You're watching KTN Prime.
It's the start of a new week. My name is Joy Dorit-Bira. Let's do business. After 25 years of farm grim on the airport's duty-free shops, businessman Kamlesh Patni has surrendered the facilities back to the government. In a surprise move, Patni also announced he would forego the 4.2 billion shillings awarded to him by the arbitration court. Philip Keitani attended the ceremony and brings us the details.
Today, I'm here by the will of Almighty to give up on all my long-running disputes over duty-free with the Kenya Airport Authority.
Kamlesh Paul Patni has for the last 25 years held on to the duty-free shops at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And today, he proclaimed peace upon himself as he let go of the facility at a brief ceremony attended by the Cabinet Secretary of Transport and Infrastructure and the Attorney General, Professor Githu Muigai.
Wow Duty Free Company Limited and Diplomatic Duty Free Company have both agreed and undertaken never to claim and or demand any compensation now or in future.
The deal, though, signaling an end to the long-running court battles between the Kenya Airports Authority and Patni's World Duty Free and Diplomatic Duty Free companies, raised eyebrows. Only last month, the Airports Authority in Adon raid evicted shop from the duty-free premises. But with the turnaround, Patni further promises to withdraw all the cases surrounding the 99-year lease on the controversial duty-free shops. He, however, had one request to the state.
And I want to live peacefully and want the Jubilee government to give me peace for the restitutions I have done and I'm doing.
Kamlesh Patni is however no stranger to controversy. In 2008, the businessman linked to the Goldenberg scandal in a surprise move. Just like this one relinquished the Lyco Regency, then known as Grand Regency, to the government. This was expected to buy him back his freedom from the state-sanctioned litigations. Philip Keitan, KTN Business Today.
Thanks, Philip, for that report. Now, Nairobi is set to host a one-day conference this Wednesday targeting women in business in the East African region. The conference, convened by Elizabeth Clemenic, seeks to take participants through the fields of economic and financial reporting. Business journalists and public relations experts will take the women through the process. The Standard Media Group and the Public Relations Society of Kenya are among the sponsors.
The conference is looking at how media reports on issues of business and finance and the economy. We found that perhaps this is an area that even when one watches news on the 9 o'clock news or whatever, you find that actually the time that's allotted to business news is very, very short. And yet we felt if we're growing our economy, or our intention is to grow the economy quantumly, and if our intention also is to become a financial services hub within a short period of time, we might want to get a little bit more from the business news just to educate people.
Now, Kenya is also set to host a high-powered economic conference for the next 2 days. Organized by the National Treasury, the International Monetary Fund, and the Central Bank, the conference will take stock of the economic progress made in the country thus far and what's needed to foster faster growth.
Kenya has in the last few years been on a slow economic growth curve, recovering steadily from the dip in 2008. Having grown to 4.6% last year, the outlook for this year is rosy, with the National Treasury predicting 5.6% growth. The two-day conference organized by the National Treasury, the IMF, and the Central Bank is set to take stock of the current strides made to foster a conducive economic environment, as well as highlight gaps that need to be filled in the short term. The last quarter has, however, proved dicey to the country's prospects, with the cost of living surging upwards. Inflation rose to 6.7% in the month of August, while fuel prices have been on the rise, not to mention the 1.5% Railway Development Levy on all imported goods. But perhaps what has really got tongues wagging in the recent past has been the enactment on the VAT Act that imposes 16% VAT. The IMF has backed the recent amendments to the VAT law, arguing that they are necessary for the National Treasury to plug the huge national budget deficit and also raise cash for the development and social expenditure. The Bretton Woods Institution has, however, noted with concern that the quality of public spending needs to improve by providing more resources to both infrastructure investment and social safety nets. The conference will bring together about 150 participants from the Kenyan private sector, the international business community, civil society, the Kenyan government, and international institutions, with President Uhuru Kenyatta expected to attend to chart the way forward for the economy. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
Thanks, Mike. Now, on Friday at close of business, the Kenya shilling was selling at about 87.63. Let's see how the shilling fared today and also how the listed companies did perform.
KTN Business in association with
Safaricom Business. Management of your employees' salaries and benefits simplified with online payroll. To get a free 30-day trial, visit cloud.safaricom.co.ke.
And that's it for business tonight. I hand you back to Yvonne Okwara. And later, Nick Mudimba will be joining us to give us the sport.
Thank you very much, Joy Doreen Bira, from our business studio here. Now, we'd just like to have a recap of our top story tonight. Deputy President William Ruto has arrived at The Hague in readiness for the resumption of his trial tomorrow. The resumption of the Hague trial after last week's adjournment after prosecution's witness failed to show up comes amid reports of withdrawal of some of the prosecution witnesses. While Ruto awaits his date with the court tomorrow, back in the country, there are fresh attempts to unearth the origin of the cases at the ICC. National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale and Senate Majority Leader Kindiki Kithure now say they want all names in the Waki report revealed in the interest of truth. Right.
Now that story is the basis of our big question tonight, and we ask, should all the names in the Waki envelope be revealed? Should the names in the Waki envelope be revealed?
Now remember, start with a yes or no, followed by a brief comment, the number 22155, and also on Twitter, let's sample some of your thoughts. Julius Masesi on Twitter, you say, revealing the remaining Waki names will not improve the economy, neither will it zero rate already overtaxed food products. We have another one here from Minor Matthews. You say, yes, at least the holier-than-thou attitude will end and the realization that we are all guilty will come through. And just one final one. Mutuku Fred says, I see no reason for revealing the remaining names in the Waki envelope. This is not the time for a local trial.
Well, we'll of course continue to sample some of your views. And just take one SMS here, and it says, no, let Uhuru and his friends carry their own crosses. Hiding behind the envelope will not clear them. Personal challenges, not national challenges. Now, Nick Mudimba is standing by with the day's sports. And Nick, I'm informed that our ladies in Egypt are doing us proud once again.
Absolutely, they're in the country right now, and of course they won their match today against the big guns Algeria. I'll be giving you that report, and also the draw for the Africa Cup of Nations come the World Cup qualifier out, and let's see who will meet who. All that after a short break.
Kenya Volleyball Queens bagged their third win of the Africa Cup of Nations Championship after silencing Algeria 3-0.
Retreat by Musalia to back the Uhuru project has been a very, very important godsend phenomenon for us in that. Among other things, it increases the possibility that even if we do not field a Luya as a presidential candidate, we have a head start in canvassing the Luya president.
You're watching KTN Prime.
All right, I'm Nicholas Mudimba. This KTN Sports Today. We begin here in the country as the Kenya women's volleyball team moved closer to defending the African title with a 3-0 thrashing of North African giants Algeria. Kenya next plays Cameroon in the round-robin Africa Cup of Nations.
Team Kenya staged yet another spectacular performance in the Women's African Cup of Nations, registering their third 3-set win of the tournament against a spirited Algerian side. Kenya won in sets of 25-19, 25-15, and 25-13. Monday display saw Makuto's family in action as Violet Makuto troubled the Algerian side with her serves, and her elder sister Evelyn Makuto proved quite a handful for the North Africans as she spiked at will. David Lungao's side clinched the first set 25-19. Kenya capitalized on the experience of captain Praxidis Kadhambi to clinch the second set. David Lungao tactical changes saw Janet Twanja rest for Genoa Shu, and Wangeshi came in for Violet Makuto in a move that seemed to pay off dividends for Team Kenya. Team Kenya cleaned the last set 25-13 in what is expected to be a trend in the ongoing championship.
Kwa hivyo mpaka sasa nafikiria tuko on course na bado tuna maintain ile focus ambayo tulikuwa nayo tangu mwanzo kwamba tunataka tushinde.
The spirited fans have been a key pillar in the Kenyan success, and they're expected to turn out in large numbers in the subsequent matches. Tuesday, all teams will take a rest, and the battle for African volleyball women's supremacy will continue on Wednesday, where host Kenya will take on Cameroon. Moses Waki at Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani.
Maya is still enjoying the peseta status despite losing 1-0 to Kenya Premier League champions Tusker over the weekend. Sofapaka is second on the log with 38 points after the win over Thika United. Sofapaka are the same as Bankers KCB, who had third. Defending champions Tusker are on third position on 35 points, same as Thika United. The drop zone is causing jitters with Karatori Sports and seemingly sealed. Mathare United is 12th on the log with 25 points, same as Sony Sugar. Moroni Youth is on 24 points, 5 points ahead of relegation candidates Kakamega Homeboys, who are 15th on the log. All right, now, Nigeria seem to be the most fortunate, having been paired with Minas Ethiopia, who have never reached the World Cup finals or won any major continental title, as the Africa Cup of Nations qualifying playoffs was done today. The Algerians have to expect a tough challenge from Burkina Faso, who made a surprising run during the last Nations Cup after reaching the final of the competition. There's a sigh of relief as Egypt and Algeria were split apart to avoid any more tension between them. Matches are scheduled for October 11th to 15th, and the 5 overall winners will qualify for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. The result leg will be played on 15th to 19th November. The draw ceremony was attended by FIFA Vice President and CAF Chief Issa Hayatu and FIFA Director of Competitions Mustafa Fahmi. In commemoration of one of the greatest Kenyan boxers, the late Harold, known as Chester Obunga, the ABA Nairobi branch sanctions an annual memorial tournament as an outreach to sensitize the youth on the importance of sports. Harold, who represented the national boxing team, famously known as the Hit Squad during his boxing career, highlights included the Commonwealth Games in 1986, All Africa Games in 1987, and he was also a quarter-finalist at the 1988 Olympics held in Seoul, Korea. The first edition of the tournament kicked off with youths being the key target, participants being sensitized on the importance of sports in promoting healthy lifestyle, self-discipline, fight against drug abuse and runaway crime in the country. KTN. All right, it's now back to you, Wilson, and Yvonne on the other side of the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for that. Now, on a lighter note, it was an embarrassing moment for Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who, while bike riding during the celebration of a youth social party in Caracas, lost his balance and took a tumble in front of all the cameras.
Now, he appeared to be okay, just a little red-faced as his security details scrambled to help him up. Maduro has developed a reputation for clumsiness, especially of the verbal sort, after being elected in April. Now, while still on the campaign trail, he was mocked in the international and opposition media for claiming that his late predecessor, Hugo Chavez, had visited him in the form of, get this, a bird, and told him he would win the election.
KTN Weather, brought to you by Morting Doom Power Guard.
Morting Doom Power Guard. Nothing kills faster and keeps killing for longer.
And we've come to the end of our bulletin, but not before sharing with you your feedback on our big question tonight. We had asked you, should all the names in the Waki envelope be released? And we have the poll results for you now.
Yes, and the 78% of you say yes, the names in the Waki envelopes, all the names rather, should be released, while 22% of you who who have sent in their messages have disagreed with that question. That is a no. 78 yes and 22% no. And we'll start sampling some of the views that we have received. If I may just read some of the SMSs that have come in. One says, no, Kenyans can't have their cake and eat it all. We have already said that the ICC prosecutor did not do any reasonable investigation. We are not ready to allow it. If I may just read another one here. Says, no, why did they not ask, yet they were in the government? Yes. Then, if I may read a last one here, and it says, just one moment here. Yes, why not? Why 3 yet they were many? What criteria was used to pick on the 3?
Right, and just 2 last tweets then. Arnold, you say there is no justice in exposing the 20 post-election violence victims will not get justice by that. Michael Okech says, why name them while we're told the investigations were shoddy to begin with? Hakuna haja. And then finally, Thomas Odol says, it should have been done from the onset. What is the secrecy about? And those are your views on our big question tonight. And we thank you for joining us in our bulletin tonight, and of course for your participation as well from all of us here. Have a good evening.
Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good night.